For everyone on the West Coast, good morning. Everyone on the East Coast, good afternoon. Thanks for joining. I'm really excited that we have Shabir Sinalabi, the CEO of XR Immersive, and Jonathan on as well, who's been building content.ai, which has been incubated in VST for VR AI. It's great. I know a lot of investors have been communicating that they want to get more updates and better communication from XRI. And so we're excited that Shabir has started the year off on a good note, and his goal is to get everyone refreshed on what they've done, what they're currently working on, what the future looks like. And some investors have sent in some Q&A that we'll get to kind of at the end. So without further ado, Shabir, I'll kick it off to you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Shafin. It's good to be here, and I know you guys are all busy, so thank you for taking the time. And since we only have a short period of time, I'll kick it off by sharing my screen. Is that good now?
That's perfect, yeah.
So I know a lot of people are here wondering about XRI and also what synthesis VR is. So before, I go into what we did last year, and then what we have planned, it's better if I give you like a short brief history. So Kaman and I, we founded Synthesis VR in 2000. So we've been knowing each other for more than, I guess, 15, 16, 17 years right now. So we were into the telecom development background, and it was kind of getting a little boring, after 12, maybe 13 years of development. So we decided, we want to do something cool, but, and in 2015, Oculus DK1, they came into the fundraiser program, and everybody was talking about virtual reality and immersive reality. And, that was the second coming of virtual reality. So we decided, this looks something really nice. And then in 2016, I went to the GDC in San Francisco, and then, experienced VR for the first time. And, it just blew me away. And I realized, if anyone tried VR, a really good VR experience, it's going to blow them away as well. So we decided then, to open the very first VR arcade in the world in 2016. We opened it under the name VR Territory, and as I mentioned, it was one of the very first. But then we got to know there was another arcade in Canada that opened at the same time as well. So we were one of the very first arcades in the world. But when we came into the arcade business in 2016, we had to do everything manually. So we decided, we want a platform, and that's how Synthesis was born in 2017. So by 2018, we had about 4 locations in under VR Territory, and we had around 100 locations using Synthesis. The one thing you have to know is Synthesis and VR Territory was operated by just 2 people, just me and Kaman, and then we had another person for support. So with 2.5 people by 2020, we had, as I mentioned, 4 locations, and we had around 125 locations using Synthesis VR, maybe 150 locations. And from that time onwards to now, we've achieved a lot. So what is Synthesis is, so I'm just speed running through this because, just to know what Synthesis is. So Synthesis VR is a platform that provides a management segment where you can pretty much operate your daily operations. You can get your bookings, you can track games, you can do anything you want for VR in your location, as well as we also provide all the popular titles for VR. So if you want to commercially license a game, you can use Synthesis VR. So not till now, but around 2020, 2021, we've already tracked around more than 10 million minutes. We've made more than 500,000 reservations on the platform. More than 100,000 customers' profiles were created. And one of the biggest things that we were able to accomplish was create our own content store, which I'll get into it a little bit. But then we were one of the very first platforms. I'm not sure how many have tried VR, but VR has like a free roam arena, also the room scale gaming. So we were one of the very first platforms that could support both types of experiences. We were able to also support like the PC based headsets and also the Android headsets. We were able to have a fully fledged booking platform where our own customers can get online booking, call reservations, things like that. So one of the biggest accomplishments that we did is create our own content store. Our content store now has more than 400 popular titles. Some of the popular titles are like Smash Point, Propagation, After the Fall, Arizona Sunshine. So some of these titles you might have heard or seen. And currently we track more than 3.5 to 4 million minutes every month. And not just games, but we also have education and also enterprise content as well, which I'll get into it. So if you see the track record of Synthesis, for just a two-man team, we've been growing steadily. In 2021, we were able to pass the $500,000 US mark. And then in 2022, we hit the 1 million mark in gross revenue. In 2023, there was a small dip, but that was because I had to step in as the CEO, from the previous management. So I had to take a little bit of time off from Synthesis, but make sure that the business is running, make sure that, that there are so many debts and all that. So we had to make sure, we are taking care of all that. And also, we were also working on a few new IPs as well, and some of the new things that I definitely think is going to add value to the company and benefit the shareholders. So that I'm going to talk about that a little bit later. So looking at our key achievements for 2023, it was a huge year for us, even though there was a slight blip. That's because we were finally able to get into our own content development. We developed our own games, our own content. We partnered with some strategic partners to have some exclusive content. We are going to create our own game publishing based on our content store. We did a lot of changes. So now we can create our own Steam or like Netflix like content store, as well as become a game publisher. And the other thing that I mentioned is we are the only platform that supports any headset in the market. That would include the Apple Vision Pro as well. So anybody who has a PC, Android headset, they can use Synthesis. We also provide a cloud delivery system for these headsets, which would become very handy when it comes to enterprise training. So if you are somewhere remote and you have headsets, you can log in with our cloud and provide content. We can stream our content directly to your headsets. This also applies to the educational VR. And Jonathan will talk more about the AI-powered creative agency as well. So this is the first game that we developed on our own with another partner. This was based on the popular game Propagation Top Squad. So this is the sequel to it. So I am going to share the trailer and then we can talk. Can you guys all hear me now? So yeah, it looks a little crazy, but it's an 8-player zombie game, we released this in December 18th, and now this has become the most popular game among all locations. It's doing very well. So based on that, we also procured rights to this game as well. This is another free roam game that is based on paranormal, which is a comedic take on Ghost Busters. So I'm just gonna play this as well for a few seconds. This is a very comedic take on Ghostbusters, as I mentioned, and it's a free roam game. It supports up to 6 players. So this is also another popular game that Synthesis owns, or XRI. And then this is another cool game that we've developed with another partner, and now we have the exclusive rights to it. It's called Telefalls. It's a really amazing game. The graphics are amazing, so I'm just gonna.
Shabir, we should share the game links on the Discord channel because I think there's no audio.
Oh,
And I
really?
think, yeah, we can, after this, share them on the Discord channel just so people can watch the videos on their own with the audio, because I think the audio
Yeah,
provides much
definitely. I
better.
thought I did the audio with the stereo mix, but I guess you can't hear it. So yeah, so this is finalizing the production stage. So it's going to be released pretty soon. So this is something that we own as well. And there's another game, but I don't want to. So we got like 4 actual games that we've developed actually, and we really launched all 3 except this one, and we are planning to release that as well. So that's one thing that we were able to accomplish in 2023. And one of the other things that's one of the biggest focus is our content distribution network. So we want to create an ecosystem like Steam or what Apple did or Google Store. As you know, Steam, it's owned by Valve. It's valued at $7.7 billion. If you look at Valve, the history of Valve, they've only done a handful of games, but the main reason for their popularity and the valuation is because of their Steam content store. So taking that into consideration, we've created our own content store, and we painstakingly over the past 7 years now have more than 400 plus games, including enterprise and educational content as well. And for the developers, it's pretty easy for them to integrate this with Synthesis VR. They get their own portal. They can track each and every subscription, how many minutes it has been used to the second, and also it's optimized for VR. So you might be wondering why not go with Steam? But the issue is with Steam is it's not optimized. And also with Synthesis VR, we also offer pay per minute booking, pay per minute billing, monthly billing, quarterly billing, annually billing, also the ability to add discounts, promotions, stuff like that, that Steam or any other content store doesn't provide. And also as I mentioned, for the operator, it's easier to optimize this with our platform. So if you have played VR, you would realize how hard it is when you have your headset on to join with another person or your friend. You got to tell him, hey, create this room, put a password on. So it's a pretty cumbersome process. But with Synthesis, with our local manager and our software, it's pretty easy. The operator can select the map, he can select the duration of the game, he can do all these settings, and he can easily join the players together and start the game. So that's why I think we believe this content store, the distribution network, is going to be a huge role in the future. And the other thing that we did was also put our time and effort into enterprise training with our cloud mobile device mobile solution. So what we do is we are going to provide not just the platform but also an end-to-end solution with the content. So this is one of the contents that we have. It's a fire safety hazard. So you can easily train your staff, your employees on fire safety. We have like lockout, tag out, work at height, so many other options for training, and the ability with our software to track everything, the sessions, the reporting, etc. And then also we are planning to include AI where you can coach them, etc. So that I'll talk about more in the future slides. The same applies to education as well. We have more than 50 educational content in our store. Uh, Most of the locations that operate as a VR arcade, they're they're not that busy during the daytime or the weekdays. So what they do is they use our educational content, enterprise content, to provide corporate training, STEAM programs for students. So this is some of the material that we have. So it comes with a lesson plan, a guide, and then you can have different organs. You can dissect different organs. This also includes like frog dissection. So I think it's really cool. Also, with Synthesis, the ability to support PC or Quest or other Android headsets, we can easily provide educational content and a platform to universities, schools, or even for homeschool students. And now I'll give it to Jonathan, where he'll talk more about the AI-powered agency.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate it. I'm very excited to share with everyone what's been going on, what we've been working on. So let me just jump right into it. I'm going to share my screen here. Okay. Please let me know if there's any issues with the screen share here. But let me jump to the beginning here. All right, so we've been working on content.ai. We've been really excited about the developments in AI, as everyone is. It's obviously moving really quickly, and I think there's a lot of great ideas out there, and we've been lucky enough to have the opportunity to work on some of those ideas. So kind of wanted to start with a little anecdote. When I was a kid in the 90s in elementary school, I remember a storyteller coming to our school and telling us the story of Anansi the spider, who's the lord of all stories. It left a big impression on me, and the story was delivered word of mouth. So it was a speaking form of storytelling. And I think about it today, and the form of storytelling that's available to the average person really hasn't changed. It's still person to person, word of mouth. Really, if you think about it, the types of people that are able to afford to tell stories visually are big studios, people with a lot of money, enough money to produce a film and animation, to try things and fail, artists who make a career out of it. But that's not really where all the stories of the world exist. There's billions of stories all around the world being told all the time, passed on from generations and generations. And those things don't get shared as easily. And it's amazing to think that, we live in this time that's so visually oriented that still today, the most common form of storytelling happens just like this: me talking to a camera and maybe some animated text. That's where we're at in 2023, 2024 now. So we started thinking, how can we really empower storytellers and basically democratize this ability to tell stories visually? That was something that has always inspired me. I'm an artist, a filmmaker, and I'm also into a lot of tech. So this was always going to be something to really get me going and make me inspired. And luckily, the teams that we've been working with are also just as inspired. So our goal is to make a studio that really provides everyone with the ability to tell visual stories, whether they're short stories, long stories, or quick little snippets. We think that that is the future. So let's just think about it like this. The way Instagram turned everyone with a phone into a photographer, we want to turn everyone with a phone into a filmmaker. And that vision is kind of the way we see the future going in general. So let's just talk quickly about how quickly this stuff is evolving. In 2019, you see this image of basically an AI generated painting, and it's sort of okay. It's kind of cool. Since then, the diffusion process has advanced so much that we're able to do pretty accurate style transfer in from video to AI generated cartoons. This is really amazing. I mean, if you think about it, the computer is just taking what it sees that's real and just making a cartoon version of it that is consistent enough that it looks almost, you almost can't decipher it from a very professionally done anime. It's even evolved further than that. You have this AI spec Adidas commercial, which is completely generated from text prompts without visual references. So this is not a style transfer. This is AI just generating video based on text it's being given. Maybe there's some control net going on there, but for the most part, this is not image to image. It is really a lot of text to image creation. On top of that, if you think of what else is going on in terms of image to image, and I'm thinking about VR, I'm thinking about video games here, you can see here's a creator who's doing real-time rendering of their face from image to AI version, which is very much cartoonified. So you can think of all the applications that might have in the future for video games, for films, basically anything. It's really powerful stuff. So in the 80s, Akira, which is one of the greatest animes of all time, cost $14 million to make. If you account for inflation, it's 120 minutes. And it was painstaking. Every frame had to be painted by hand. And they wanted to do it in 24 frames per second. So that is normally not done just because of how expensive it is. And this is considered one of the greatest animes of all time. And today to do the same thing would cost probably a lot more, but it's no longer as hard with AI. You don't have to go frame by frame painting. You can feed it a video and it will turn out into a nice animated version of that video at almost zero cost. So we're actually working on stuff like that. But in the words of Mr. Jeffrey Katzenberg, this is the guy who founded DreamWorks Animation, right? So he created Shrek. He created a lot of very popular animations. He believes that in the next 3 years, AI is going to replace 90% of his workforce. Now, thinking about that, a lot of people get scared when they hear that, especially artists. They think, oh my gosh, 90% of our artist jobs are going to be gone. Personally, I think it's exciting. Now, it's not because I don't want to give jobs to artists. I think we all really appreciate when people are able to create art and be paid for it. But what I see is these AI tools will really replace 90% of production. So the production is the hard stuff. It's the stuff that says, we can't afford to show Spider-Man blowing up a planet because it's just too costly. The creative people who come up with those ideas are going to be less limited and more empowered to create those visuals in the films that they're doing, in professional films, but also for people like myself who don't have a giant studio to run. For people like the storyteller, when I was a child telling us that story, they might have been able to illustrate that very easily. So it's the production that really this AI technology is going to streamline, which is very exciting. To give you an example, we got really excited and we thought we'd throw together a few tests. So I'm just going to let this play and describe a little bit what you're seeing here. We just took a camera, filmed some friends. We went to a little bit of a green screen studio. We spent about 2 to 3 hours filming different ideas of what we could show and how we could process it using AI. But this stuff was all done. The shooting was done in 2 to 3 hours, and then the compositing, the stylization, the rendering. The rendering itself took place a little bit later, but the rendering of the reference images and the keyframes, putting it all together took about 6 hours. And none of this stuff is all that fascinating. We did it 6 months ago. So it's kind of old and the technology has advanced since then. But what's cool is we felt we were really empowered to be able to tell stories the way we wanted to. And we really didn't feel like we had limitations. We can show a person on a motorcycle running through a city. We can show a bomb going off. We can create basically anything we want and create a cohesive style that unifies all those images together relatively easily. And it was just so fast. So the fact that it was so fast, so easy, and so quick, and so empowering really got us excited. And that's one of the reasons we started spending so much time trying to turn this into a big project for us. So right now, where are we? We are at the stage where we would like to revolutionize storytelling by turning every phone into a movie studio. That's our goal. How we're going to do it, we have a two-pronged approach. We're going to start by working on influencer marketing and film and video. Now, these two avenues really give us the opportunity to tackle different sets of challenges in AI visual storytelling. So the first is with characters. Characters, you really want them to be consistent. You want the face to look the same no matter where it appears. And you want to have some flexibility with how that face appears and what settings. And you want it to look cool. So we're going after influencer marketing because it's a way that we can sort of test the waters and test with engagement, test with feedback. In the meantime, we're going to be developing facial consistency, body consistency, the accuracy of creating emotions. And we're also going to be experimenting with brand integration tools. So here you can see how we are able to swap faces and keep certain faces consistent. Here you can see that we're playing with changing the environments and the costume and the branding. So character is our first pronged approach. And then our second prong is storytelling. Storytelling is slightly different because characters, a character can just be wherever, but where they are, how they move, how the camera moves, all the other things that are involved, that's really exciting stuff that really only comes through when you're trying to develop a story in an environment. So we're going to be working on environmental consistency, motion consistency, the way the style is affected by the distance of the camera, integrating 3D applications like Blender, Unreal, Maya, 3D camera tracking, and virtual production, and developing things like Snapchat filters. How can we easily make something X or Y? So that's really our second parallel approach. And what's really cool is we think that we'd like to model this after the approach of these famous studios who launched sort of their tech side of development with these sort of flagship productions. Avatar was produced for $1 billion, not because Disney wanted to spend $1 billion on a movie. They were wanting to spend $1 billion on a technology to make a movie. And that technology ended up being used in Star Wars, Marvel, really all the modern productions that use virtual production and motion tracking technology. So that's the same thing that we're doing. We have these projects that we're using to sort of test the limits of what we can achieve. And the goal is to package those products into something that will make everyone able to use that technology in a really easy way. So one of our projects is WW. It's cyberpunk aesthetic. It's really tests the limits of the technology and the VFX. And that uses, and the goal of that is to tell a story with it. It's an interesting thing that we're all really passionate about, and it's giving us a lot of opportunity to experiment. So you can see how we're filming on a green screen, and then we turn that into some really amazing visuals. You got a team of like 3 people in this green screen studio, and the post-production is basically just a barrel of fun. It took me like an hour or 2 to turn this motorcycle scene into something really cool. Luckily, I'm not alone. I'm working with some really cool people. The team is really well-rounded across us. We've worked on Mandalorian, Foundation, Thor, many of the Marvel productions. This is all in VFX. And we really all really like working together. it's a fun thing because we get to be nerds about not only storytelling and telling these really cool, larger than life stories, but we get to also work together on this technology that's really exciting. So that's really the whole presentation. I'm just glad I got to share the excitement of what we're doing with you guys. And I hope, I hope you'll join us on this journey. It's really exciting.
Thanks so much, Jonathan. That's awesome. I especially liked me as a superhero. That's great. If I only had that body. We'll kick it back to Shabir just to kind of close it out, and then we'll get to the Q&A.
Yep. Thank you so much. Yeah, that looks pretty awesome, especially as seeing Shafin like that put a smile on everyone's face. So I'm just gonna continue. So I think we spoke about what we have achieved, but I think now it's time to see what we can do more this year and also the coming years. One of the biggest things is using our own experience in our VR entertainment industry, as well as, for the past 8 years in VR as well, talking to, I think we've spoken to more than 500 or maybe even more 1,000 developers, working with so many locations all over the world, even with franchises like HoloGate, Zero Latency. There was one question about zero latency. Yeah, there are a couple of locations, or about 3 or 4 actual zero latency locations that are using synthesis for their games and stuff. So we can get to the questions later. So the few things is enterprise training with AI and content delivery is going to be huge. And then also, as I mentioned, the exclusive game and content creation. We are getting into this. We've already have 4 games now, and another new game is coming up before summer. And then using the whole technology with the content store, we are going to become a game publisher and take our content store to the next level, where we can disrupt the industry and become the next Steam or Netflix. As well as we have the platform, we have the content. Why not create a turnkey solution for family entertainment centers, large entertainment centers? So that's one thing that we are planning to do, as well as continuously innovate and integrate. And using our enterprise and delivery network, we can also go into education for universities and schools. And last but not least is the booking solution that I'll talk about. So let's get into it with the enterprise thing. When somebody has a simulated experience, there's a huge retention rate instead of watching a video or reading a book. I think that anybody who has tried VR can attest to that. And then the projected market size for VR training, including government funding, which is going to be around 298 billion. And one of the cool things with training in an immersive environment is it's pretty safe. You can train regarding fire or safety, working at height, or so many other hard skills, in a safe environment. And also you can conduct multiple training sessions in a safe way. And the other thing is it's very safe. Already there are some big companies like Emirates, Audi, Toyota, Walmart, Bank of America training their employees in VR. So this is already begun. So what we are planning to do is get more cool training content from the ones that I showed. We already have about 5 or 6, but we are planning to get another 16 cool content. We are also working on getting harassment training. That's another huge project that I think was going to help. More than millions of dollars are spent by corporate industries or corporate companies fighting lawsuits against sexual harassment and other harassment lawsuits. So I think training people in harassment, the employees, is going to help overcome that. So that's going to be big as well. And also with our platform and AI, we can also integrate Ready Player Me type profiles. So what this would do is with synthesis, you can pretty much track everything, like how they're training, whatever sessions, how they did on each training session, the eye movement, everything we can track. So what we are planning to do is with AI, we can actually coach the trainees, and also we can provide extensive reports to employers who see how their employees are training, things like that. We can also report them things. Another cool thing is we already have around 450, and it's always growing, locations using synthesis all over the world, mostly in North America and Europe. So what we are planning to do is leverage these locations and create training centers, because even if you're a large corporate client, it's hard to purchase all these equipments, provide a solution. You have to have your own IT in division to take care of all that. So what we are planning to do is leverage our existing locations, where we can create extensive training networks or training centers. So where these companies can easily go, send them to different training centers all over the world. They can train their employees. And the other cool thing is all this training is based on a standard. So if US, they have their own standard, like Canada has its own standard, the Europe has Monash, stuff like that. So we are planning to our training methods are going to be based on these standards, and then the idea is to certify these trainees with proper certification. So once they complete a training session, they can have a proper certificate. So I think this will be something cool, because we already have the centers, they already have the locations, they already have the tech, they already have people who know how to operate VR. All we have to do is use synthesis, provide a platform, the content, and we can provide all this. So I think this is going to be a huge opportunity. So apart from the training, as I mentioned, going into exclusive content development, this is our next game that's going to come up. It's called Heist Heroes. So following the success of Propagation Top Survivors, I think this is something that's going to be exclusive. So it's not just building just a game, but what we are planning to do is create an IP. So this is like 12 heroes. They're going into different metaverse and trying to save humanity from pops, and one who acts like an evil empire. So what they do is, so the initial one is they have their own bank, so that it's called Mega Bank, and our goal is our heroes are going to rob that bank and give this to the people that have been robbed. It's like a Robin Hood kind of story, but in VR. So there's like 12 characters, and the idea is not just, as I mentioned, one story, but build these characters and a franchise and an IP, so we can have merchandise, spawn this into different types of games. So the opportunity is huge as well. And as I mentioned, our content store is going to be big. As I mentioned, we have about more than 400 titles, and the next step would be is becoming a publisher, because a lot of these indie developers, they do not have a way to distribute their content other than Steam or HTC, some of the stores, and their content getting lost. So what we do is we provide an avenue for them to distribute their content commercially. And then the next goal would be is bundle these or even distribute this content for the consumers as well. And the good thing is, as I mentioned, these developers have their own portal. They can track the minutes used, the subscriptions, everything. And another thing is, as I mentioned, the creating a Steam kind of store. And the final thing, one of the main things that we want to focus is providing a turnkey solution. So this is going to be something huge, because you might think, why not the current turnkey solution? So there are some other providers who actually do this, but what we are planning to do is the software, because we have the experience in providing a solution. So now we are partnering with HTC and Pico, as well as some of the hardware vendors, to provide the fabrication part. And one of the biggest things with the large FECs is the ROI. So with synthesis, they can utilize the same space, not just for free roam games or arena games, but they can also utilize the same space to provide room scale games, as well as with our compatibility, they can use the same headsets to provide PC-based high-end gameplay, or they can even provide an Android-based headset gameplay. So there's a lot of flexibility, and I think that is where we are going to be different and provide an amazing turnkey solution. One of the last things that I want to talk about is the booking platform. If you have booked on Fair Harbor, for a movie or an escape room, you might be familiar with FareHarbor. FareHarbor recently sold to Booking.com for $300 million, and Synthesis already has its own booking platform. We provide our own booking platform for most of our locations. They use Synthesis to take online reservations. And the other cool thing with Synthesis is once you get your reservation, it's linked in or integrated with our platform, so you can launch sessions, you can track them, all the data. So why not take this to the next level? Instead of just providing it for VR, why not provide for non-VR entertainment businesses as well? There are thousands of entertainment businesses like bowling centers, escape rooms, VR, so many other places that people go for entertainment. So I do think we have the structure. So now the only thing missing is, taking it for non-VR centers. And there's a huge opportunity here as well. And based on what we did with the enterprise as well as the education, I do think there's an opportunity in sports rehab and sports training as well. This is something that we partnered with a company called Resil, and we decided to do a little bit, but we haven't spent too much time on it, but I do think this is something huge as well. So I'm just going to play this video. So you can actually track how a person is reacting, his time, because that plays his reaction time, because that plays a huge role when it comes to his performance in the actual game. So in terms of like cricket or soccer, this helps a lot. And also if you take like American football or rugby, where there's a lot of contact, people cannot train a lot using contact because they are going to get injured and stuff. But with VR, they can actually simulate a real life or real game scenario, and then they can work. This would definitely help when it comes to like quarterback play and all, because if you see these defensive schemes, they're so confusing sometimes for new quarterback. I'm not sure if you're a football fan, you would understand that. So like deciphering all these defensive situations in VR and then actually implementing in a game, it's going to help a lot. So this is something I think there is a huge opportunity as well. So that's it for now. Thank you so much. And I think now it's time to take some questions, I guess.
Yeah, let's go. I have, so we had a bunch of questions sent in, so I'm going to just start with those, Shabir. So, this first question you actually kind of answered, which was, can you tell me about your work history? Have you or your business partner founded other businesses besides Synthesis VR? So I'll skip over that because I think you pretty much kind of gave that background. This one's probably one that I think a lot of investors want to know. So when your company was acquired by VRAR or VRAI now, the primary business was uncontained. That business was wound down, but during that time, the company took on debt. How do you plan on paying off that debt?
Yeah, so that's where I think VST and
Yeah.
Shafin comes into play. So I'm gonna let Shafin answer that
I
question.
can probably answer that question.
Yeah.
So one of the things, the lender for that debt for VRAI is a close friend who's also supported VST and is a Hydrate investor as well. And so he's been super patient and supportive and working with us and VRAI to make it a win-win situation for VRAI. The game plan for VRAI is to we think the company is significantly undervalued. So the game plan right now this year is to introduce these new products, get the revenue numbers up, improve the margins, improve customer communication, get the company trading to a market cap, which we think is probably more in line with comps in the industry, and then to do a financing, which would then allow the debt to be cleared, as well as to give the team, Shabir, Jonathan, and the rest of them, additional ammo to kind of continue and grow and scale the business out. Right now, we've had a lot of interest in funding the company, but the market cap of the company, in US dollars is about 1.8 million USD. And in Canadian dollars, that's probably maybe like $2.5 million Canadian valuation. Comparables to XRI would be on the low end around a $20 million US valuation privately to given the types of things that Shabir is working on and Jonathan and the content.ai team are working on, we've seen comparable companies, raising money north of 40 and 50 in this. So we don't want to do any financings at these levels. The game plan would be to get the company, trading higher to a market cap that we think is more reasonable, then to do a financing and to then clear off the debt and provide additional ammo. And we've been working with the lender, and the lender's on plan with that, with that strategy. So we're not concerned about that. There's one other question which kind of ties into this answer too. So a lot of people might wonder about the rollback. So in November, XRI did a rollback, 6-to-1 rollback. And the reason for that rollback was the company is very, very tightly held, and the largest shareholders are VST, and the founders of SVR, Shabir and Common. And we wanted to tighten that cap structure even more. And that's one of the reasons why we did the rollback. We feel that with a smaller float, there'll be less pressure on the share price, which will allow us to focus on the market as well for the company and kind of get it trading to a more reasonable valuation. Pretty much all the shareholders in XRI were either VST, Shabir and Common, or VST dividend holders who received, I think stock in 2021 as part of over 2 tranches as part of a dividend. So that was kind of the logic behind the rollback: tighten the structure, lessen the float, which would allow us to kind of, get the company to a level where we think it's a more accurate valuation to be able to get to their financing. The next question, can you talk about the area of the business that is generating revenue and discuss its margins? How did this business perform in 2023? Do you expect this business to grow?
Yeah, I think I touched base a little bit on this. So as I mentioned, the business has been growing year to year, as I showed in the graph. And we've done a lot of development over the last year in terms of our platform, making it agnostic to work with all the other headsets, and investing not just in entertainment, but also in enterprise and education is going to help us grow a lot. So I think we made the right moves to create a sustainable business as well as increase revenue. So I think that should. And there's another question just before I saying that Meta is less popular, which is not true. Maybe Facebook as a company or Meta as a company has a bad name, but as a headset, it's one of the most popular headsets. And a lot of businesses are definitely using that headset, so it shouldn't be an issue.
So the next question, how will VR AI meet its financial obligations? So I can help answer that too as well. So we've been working, VST, we've been working as a large shareholder, been working kind of closely with XRI. So XRI, just for sake, is the parent company. Synthesis VR, SVR is a wholly owned product of it, as is content.ai. The SVR business on a month-to-month basis, Shabir, Common, and half another person have done an amazing job of kind of operating that business on a cash flow positive basis with healthy margins. Where the costs been kind of incurring are on the being a public company, so the public market costs. And that's where VST's kind of stepped in and helped subsidize that cost by providing access to our own back office, bookkeeper, accountant, CFO, controller, corp sec type stuff, and then additional kind of funding that's been provided either personally or by VST to kind of get them through this period. So it's able to meet all its financial obligations there to continue to operate. And then again, I mentioned earlier with respect to the debt, the game plan with that is we've got a great arrangement with the lender to help clear that off on a future financing. This question I kind of semi-answered. So should VR AI remain a public company considering all the costs involved in being public. So it's really unfortunate that Shabir Khan and the team, became public when, in the midst of a down cycle. I'm sure they would have had more fun being public in 2020 when everything was going a bit bananas. But I think in the long term, like the VST model is always to look forward, identify a goal, and then kind of work backwards to that goal. I think that it's unfortunate that we've seen kind of like the negative parts of being public in a down market, but having been through, multiple cycles, I think that the opportunity is greater of being public. I think that whether it's this year or next year, I think that a new a market will form, and sentiment and interest will come back in. And for a company like XRI, which is working on at the forefront of industries like virtual, augmented, mixed reality, with what content.ai is doing with respect to AI and storytelling. I feel like they're in the midst of a big trend. It's not going anywhere. It's only going to get greater. I think being a public company, there's not many options for people to access this type of product, especially from a microcap perspective. Again, the technology is universal too, so this will be something that I think investors will have an interest in all around the world. And so I feel when that market sentiment comes back, you'll see the benefits of VRAI being public, and then also the ability to when the share price is trading at a level which we think is better or more fair, conduct M&A with shares and be able to raise money on a global scale to kind of grow. So I think in the long term, it's better to be public. Obviously, the last 2 years have been kind of, excuse my language, shitty. But how can VRAI invest in R&D while running at a deficit? Again, this is something I could probably help with. I think Shabir and Common and the team have always, like he'd mentioned in his past, been able to do a lot with very little. And it's the same experience that I've had working with Jonathan and Jeff and his team. These guys are lean. They're able to, they're passionate about what they're doing, and they're experienced with what they're doing. And so they're able to do and carry much more than a random startup going into it. And I think from a VST perspective, that's why we're very aligned with working with founders like Jonathan and Shabir and Common. So within their respective businesses, they've been able to to invest in R&D and scale and scope with what normally others would require millions of dollars to be able to do. The second thing, and this is again one of the benefits of the VST ecosystem, in that we're able to content.ai and the work with Jeff and Jonathan kind of happened and incubated kind of within the VST side. So we're able to lend resources, best practices, again with Jonathan, what Jonathan and his team is working on. Anyone that's followed the VST story knows that we've also been involved in film and mobile games with film IP. So there's this great ecosystem that we have that allows us to do a lot of this stuff without having to need tons of resources or millions of dollars. We're able to do that and bootstrap that. So that's why I think, again, we've been able to, both VRAI, Shabir, Jonathan, and us have been able to collaborate, in a very lean manner. Let me jump to some of these other questions. How much does it cost to develop a game for your content store? What are your plans to promote the store, especially in the face of the market awareness of rivals like Steam?
So the cost, I think that's a question for me. So the cost, it depends on the game. So if you're going to develop something like Propagation, it's going to be at least hundreds of thousands. But for something like Heist Heroes, might be a little cheaper. So it all depends on the game, what are the headsets that you're planning to support. So it's varying a lot. But in terms of like promoting the store, one cool thing is, we are one of the industry firsts, and we are the pioneers in this fledgling industry. We've been in the market for more than 7 or 8 years. If you go to any exhibition or any shows like IAPA or Amusement Expo, on the commercial side of things, Synthesis VR has already built a pretty good brand awareness and a name. So I think the next step is in investing in marketing and making sure that Another reason what I was talking to Shafin yesterday was also creating like a show for indie developers where they can come and showcase their games. So, and also inviting FEC owners or business owners to come and check out the games and the platform. So these are some of the ways where we can create awareness and create a rival like Steam.
Jonathan, this is probably a good question for you. How crowded is the consumer AI content creation space?
Yeah, it's a really good question. So many people are familiar with those sort of apps that kind of turn your face into something different. And there's a lot of that out there, but that technology is what I would call lazy. It's on par with what was available 6 months ago. One of the reasons that we're working on film related stuff is because we're looking at how AI can be used in a professional setting. And then the tools that we're developing in that setting are really able to be ported over to a much more consumer level once they've been streamlined and those workflows have been streamlined. So there's a lot of consumer AI content creation apps, but they're all very basic and they don't do much in terms of video, actually. The video stuff is not really not as good as it certainly can be.
No, that's great. And just to add to that, so one of the other things I should have mentioned is one of the reasons why we've focused on the AI influencer and AI creator side is again, for those who know the VST portfolio, you know, that we've had a big presence in the creator space with creator.co, where you know we've worked with micro influencers and brands connecting with them. And so part of the reason we're doing this again is that there are a lot of brands that are interested in the idea of creating their own virtual influencer that, like, you know, fits all the cultural ideals and values of their customer base, and someone that they have a little bit more control over the type of content that's pushed out. So there's some interesting stuff that we're working on around that. That's one of the reasons why we, you know, kind of figure that out. I don't think it's as, I think eventually the AI influencer space will get crowded, and you know, sometimes those spaces always kind of get commoditized. I think it's still, you know, there's still a lot of ways to run, but we found a specific area where we have distribution lined up already, and the market is significant, and that's kind of what where our focus is on. And it ties into another question that was asked about the ability to make bank with AI-based models or model filters on OF or TikTok. And so specifically on the OF side, we've been playing around with that primarily because we've got a banking product in that space and sector. So right now we're trialing and testing IP on these different areas, but where we've decided to trial it with respect to the AI-based models or creators is specifically where we have some sort of advantage or distribution already set up, because we'd rather pilot it there where we know we can make money and it can be profitable. Is it difficult, expensive to port a game to support more headsets? Shabir, I think this is a question for you.
It's not, it could be difficult because the main issue is if your games have been developed for the PC, then the graphics card that I used or the graphics that is used is going to be very hard to port when it comes to an Android headsets, because they don't have the same graphics capability. Because if you're developing something for the PC and you're going to use an RTX card, so the rendering would be faster than, but now with all these new headsets, the Qualcomm XR2 chipset and the Qualcomm XR3 chipsets coming in, the lines are getting blurred. It's a little bit more easier. It's easier to develop a game for all the platforms. So with Heist Heroes, that's what we are planning to do, is not just for the PC, but it can also be played in the Quest, also on the Focus 3 Pico headsets as well. So it gives a wide variety of headsets to be used and implemented.
I was just checking on time, so maybe we'll do two last questions. So what is your strategy to approach all these potential possibilities? Do you have the resources to target some of them on an ongoing basis? I can just touch upon that and then pass it off to you, Shabir, but I think I kind of mentioned that one of the things is, you know, with Shabir and the SVR's team, you know, there's the potential opportunities that they've kind of vetted and validated where they've already got distribution for, that they've kind of, have the resources to be able to tackle that from content publishing, game development, and the enterprise B2B side of things. With Jonathan and his team, again, internally, they're driven by more, I think, by passion, and with a lot of what they're working on there. And then from a VST side, I think it's being able to kind of support with the grants, funding resources, and some of the access to the ecosystem that's allowing us to kind of explore these things. We're obviously all operating very lean with VRAI, and so we're not going and spraying and praying. We've been very calculated with what Jonathan and his team are working on, and what Shabir and his team are working on things that we feel really, really good about, and we can tackle much more strategically in the future with additional resources and firepower. I'm sure the team would tackle more, but right now we're keeping it very, very focused. There's
And also, I think,
sorry, go on, Shabir.
To add to that is, we've already, if you see our business model, we've already are tackling these projects as well as we go along. We've already gone into game development. We've already gone into enterprise and education. So I don't think it will be much difficult to tackle this in the future.
That's awesome. The one last question, this is probably something I'll have to look into. Someone had a question about their shares in VR Immersive, and will the company change its name? I think for now, the name, given that, all the projects are, involved with respect to, mixed reality and immersive experiences. So I think the name would probably stay the same. The shares are all the same. So I think with the rollback, if you've deposited your shares, it would just be reflected within your trading account. So again, thank you, Shabir, Jonathan, Abby, for putting this together. Thank you for all the investors that tuned in. Hopefully, if we weren't able to answer any questions, please feel free to email them to VST or XRI, or add them to the Discord channel, and I'll pass that off to Shabir and Jonathan. Yeah, again, thank you everyone for your time. I hope everyone has a great day.
Yeah, thank you so much. Have a good one.